Niagara Sports Hub 2022. We made it to another year with Mike Fisher. How's everyone doing, Mike, Tim?
I'm doing great.
Outstanding. Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Come on, Mike. What's a resolution? You've got to have at least one resolution this year.
To quit bringing up Skip Bayless on my broadcast.
Oh, you know what?
All I'm doing is I'm getting a lot of my angst out when I do it, but all I'm doing is poisoning my own well. And so my wife has urged me to stop. So I'm going to stop.
What if we have him on and we have like a cage match? Can we do that?
Well, first of all, I don't know anything about boxing or fighting. I would love to fight Skip Bayless because I think my righteousness, God would be on my side. Plus, he's tiny. He's got he's lean, and so it creates the appearance that he's got muscle. Right before you die, you probably look like you have muscle because you're shriveling up, and so he's a shriveled up cockroach, a hemorrhoid of human being. But that's the last of this year. You just got my last Skip Bayless comment of the year. He is a human hemorrhoid.
Oof.
John, do you have any resolutions for 2022?
Probably the normal one, get back in shape. We got trade shows coming up at the end of the year. And,
lots of walking.
I gotta.
I think you do that every January 1st, every year. It's the normal one.
Yeah.
Next year, I'm going to get in shape. Why don't you just move to next year?
John, you'll like this. My wife told me I have two resolutions.
Yeah.
Be more cheerful and be more spontaneous.
Wow. Damn, that's kind of an attack on your character.
It was her third one is we're getting a divorce?
Oh, no.
Wow.
Speaking of cheerful, I was not cheerful watching that Dallas Arizona game last week.
And listen, this is the roller coaster of the NFL with COVID now more than ever. I would not want to be a gambler. I don't know how you could possibly pretend that you know what's going to happen in these games. Dallas was a 6.5-point favorite at home. They'd won 3 games in a row. Arizona had lost 3 in a row, as I recall. There was no reason for Arizona to win that game. And then Dallas spent 3 quarters laying an egg. I have no idea what's going to happen this week with this team, any team, Super Bowl, nothing, COVID, I don't know. I keep my money in my pocket.
So are they playing for something? Are they playing for home field advantage at some point through the playoffs?
Yeah. The 2 reasons for them to play for something at Philadelphia on Saturday night are, 1, because mathematically they could still move up from 2. It seems from 4. It's unlikely, but mathematical. And then 2 is the old, hey, listen, just play hard, play to win. That's always the way to play. Momentum for the playoffs and all that. Well, there's some problems with that. Number 1, there is no evidence that winning in the last week of the regular season translates. There's zero evidence of that. I've done the research and I've had the debates. You convince yourself that there is. That's the only advantage is you talk yourself into it. But as I said to people inside the Star this week, so let's play the last game to win so we get confidence for the playoffs. Okay, if that's how your mind works, what if you lose? Then you've blown it. So the psychology of it is part of it. The numbers are part of it. But I think the Cowboys' philosophy over the course of the week has been massaged. On Monday, it was let's go for it. Now we're on the eve of the actual game where they're going, Tyron Smith's out with COVID. Micah Parsons out with COVID. Trayvon Diggs is sick, not with COVID as far as we know yet. The Eagles have some of the same problems. There's some sentiment towards saying, why don't we just get through this? Why don't we just this is preseason game 2. Why don't we just survive this thing and save it up for when it measurably matters?
So Michael Gallup out for the year now. You know what the talk is with all these amateurs saying, you know who we should sign?
Well, I'm pleased that you're putting me in a category of people that actually know what's going on. Antonio and Josina Anderson, who I have a great respect for, a longtime reporter, said there's teams that gobble them up right now. And I would respectfully say to Josina, that's got to be a sentiment coming from the Antonio Brown camp.
Yeah.
First of all, if there was teams that gobble them up right now, well, where are they? Now would be the time to do it. Why would you wait? And secondly, no, absolutely no. And I don't say this because I find it comical. I don't find it comical, his circumstance. It's tragic. It's on the verge of tragic. There's obviously a mental imbalance there, an emotional disturbance there. And he has protested anybody that thinks that. The Bucs have suggested that, and now he's mad at the Bucs for saying it, which is also a sign that there's a mental imbalance there. And this has been going on with this young man for a long time. And I think we all know somebody in our family or in our circle of friends who has mental health challenges. And while it is always funny when somebody slips on a banana peel, it's always funny. But then when you realize the person broke their hip, it's not funny anymore. So the minute that he was having his strip down meltdown, you couldn't take your eyes off it. But then you realize, okay, but wait a minute, there's something very serious and potentially tragic going on here. ESPN, the NFL, and all these teams pretending like Dallas is going to sign him or should sign him should take a step back and recognize Antonio Brown is not a football player in need of a team. He's a human in need of help.
Yeah, that's well said. Well said. Yeah. So with that, we've talked about one of your favorite players, Odell Beckham Jr. Tim and I were talking. Talking about this yesterday. And Tim was gloating that Odell Beckham is Mr. Touchdown Maker now on the Rams. But
look, I'm a Rams fan. I didn't like the signing, but I will take the last 5 weeks of touchdowns.
Yeah. I just think, and I'm sure you agree, your locker room can sometimes be built on a house of cards when it is reliant on somebody who might lose the keys. That they have the keys to the car and they might lose the keys. A few years ago, his name escapes me. Rolando McClain, remember him?
Yeah,
big, gigantic Raiders middle linebacker, tall and rangy and gifted. And he gets a second chance. He had issues. He gets a second chance with the Cowboys, and the Cowboys. He shows up to training camp. I swear to you, he comes to training camp for his first interview, and he's wearing eyeglasses with no glass in them. And I can't remember if I said this to him but are you trying to look smart? What are we trying to accomplish here? He was trying to it was a put on. It was all a put on. And the Cowboys said, he's gonna be the captain of our defense. He's gonna call the plays. And I said, you realize you're giving the keys to the car to somebody that might lose the keys. Yeah. And in fact, that's what happened. He ends up there's something that some sort of drug-related drink called Purple Drank. I don't expect any of the three of us to know what it is, but he was addicted. He was allegedly addicted to this drug drink. At one point, mysteriously, his house back home burned down. Mysteriously, just all these things. But a really smart guy, charming guy, and a gifted football player. But if you hand the keys to the car to that guy, and he's the driver of your car, you're in danger of crashing. And the Rams obviously are braced for that. They are.
Hey, they've got some voices in that locker room, though, that I think are keeping him in check. Mainly some guys on that defense that have been in the league for many years and have won defensive MVPs. And, I think they've got him pretty well in check.
Just like Terrell Owens doesn't want to be put in the same category as Antonio Brown, I'm sure Odell Beckham would argue too. What do you mean? I don't have issues like that. But Antonio Brown had the greatest leader in the history of team sports as his big brother in Tom Brady. Had Antonio Brown in the middle of that Jets game simply gone over and sat next to Tom Brady and said, Tom, I'm about ready to burst, this never would have happened. Instead, he went the other direction and decided to burst. So you're right about how leaders and big brothers and counselors and teachers and parents and all the rest can help. But if you have a mental illness, sometimes you don't listen.
I was thinking about this this week, and this wasn't on the notes. So there have been a couple players on the Las Vegas Raiders now that have gotten DUIs and the whole Henry Ruggs thing. Do you think it's a result of moving to a place like Las Vegas that more people, or just this would have happened anywhere?
Rich Bisaccia, I know a little bit, and he is, of course, the interim head coach there, a longtime NFL special teams coach. And he suggested that. He said, well, we have to realize the city we live in. And I would like to grab Rich by the lapels and tell him that is completely inappropriate. That is completely off base. People used to say, well, it's a good thing Randy Moss plays in Minnesota instead of Dallas. Minnesota has strip clubs. Lots of them.
Yes.
You can get in plenty of trouble in Minneapolis. You can get in a lot of trouble in Minneapolis, Minnesota. You can get a lot of trouble in Fargo, North Dakota, if you want to. It's not about the city.
Hey, they had the whole porn boat, or what was the whole thing up in Minneapolis?
Yeah. I mean, you can. There's still alcohol and prostitutes and drugs in Fargo, North Dakota. Like Times Square in 1970. Okay, that's a bad environment. You can't walk 3 feet without in 1970 Times Square without being mugged, accosted. Cop gets you or a prostitute gets you. Mm-hmm. It was true. It was. I don't know if you guys are old enough to know. It was a absolute cesspool of sexuality and drug use and all the rest. So some places are different. Most of us have only been to Las Vegas, the Las Vegas that Versace is talking about on the Strip.
Yeah.
But, if you think logically, you realize Las Vegas also has, like elementary schools and gardens and swimming pools. It's not that. So that's inappropriate. Raiders are not getting in trouble because of Las Vegas. They're getting in trouble because they're getting in trouble.
Speaking of trouble, John, you and I had a discussion yesterday about a local Chicago media person. Mike, you may know Hub, you may not know Hub, but John, you wanted to talk a little bit about this.
Yeah. Well, he was on the air the other day, and he said that he wouldn't vote for Aaron Rodgers for MVP because of his leadership and just being a bad guy and his deception with the whole COVID stuff, and it really had nothing to do with his play on the field, which I thought MVP was based on play on the field. But does character come into this? I mean, there's 50 guys who get that vote. I think it's 50 that get that vote for MVP, and Hub Arkush is one of them. And does that go through people's mind?
This is a really great, and I assume this is a hot topic in Chicago. We are supposed to leave out personal. Whether it's Pro Football Hall of Fame or, I used to have an MVP vote, Pro Bowl, all that. But how do you leave out personal?
Mm-hmm.
It's impossible. First of all, the players and the teams campaign for their guys. I used to sit at the Old Valley Ranch, and I remember Nate Newton would come in every year. I would be with my ballot. He'd see me with my ballot, and he'd come in and tell me, put me on your ballot. And then he was also helpful saying this San Francisco defensive line, but that's commonplace. The Pro Bowl voting, the way it used to go from the teams, this is the olden days now, they'd go into a meeting room and the offensive coordinator would say, here's who we're voting for. Here's who our team is voting for. The players didn't vote. They didn't care. So it's not as pristine as we all think. If you're going to play by Hub's rules, then you got to get O.J. Simpson out of Canton.
Yep.
If we're going to go through, we could do this right now off the top of our heads. We'd get in a lot of trouble. We could do an all-pro, all-jerk team all time. He said he's the biggest jerk in football. Aaron Rodgers might be the biggest jerk in football, except Hub with all his, and we're talking about Hub's, how old is he now?
Oh, he's got to be 65.
I was wondering if this was his grandson, Hub the third, that was involved, because he's been doing this for a long time. But isn't he also a Bears-centric guy?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and he doesn't like the Packers quarterback? I wonder why. There's jerks all over the place. It's just that Aaron Rodgers is so loud about it. For being a jerk, they do have the best record in football. See, I thought the Packers might turn on him, and I was wrong. Maybe I was just being hopeful. That absolutely didn't happen. Is he a jerk? Yeah, but O.J. Simpson's an alleged murderer or / murderer. I mean, here we go. Charles Haley, in my 30 years of experience with him, is not, if I was going to vote for him on his being nice, I would not vote for him. Deion Sanders is kind of a jerk, but he's the best cover cornerback to ever play the game. So that's why you can't do it that way. Right. Otherwise, Tim thinks he's a jerk. He thinks he's a jerk. Okay, nobody goes in the Hall of Fame. Pete Rose is a jerk. he's on the short list of greatest baseball players to ever play.
Yeah. So that's another discussion. I think he belongs in the Hall of Fame.
I do too.
Of course he does. Yeah. Because if we start making moral judgments on guys, then we're putting our morality onto a template that is then put over them. And our who says my morality's right? I went to Cowboys at Washington a couple weeks ago, and my wife and I went to the Smithsonian, which I assume you guys have been to.
I have. It's on my bucket list. I'd love to go.
First of all, Washington D.C. is an absolute must. You got to go. It's incredible. They have changed it. I hadn't been to the Smithsonian in 20 years. It's changed now. They don't just recognize the businessmen, the historic American businessmen that the three of us have heard of. They recognize historic African American business women that we've never heard of. Mm-hmm. They came around to recognizing, that's kind of a big part of our history too. Mm-hmm. That and there's entire sections on racism in advertising, which just used to be, here's Aunt Jemima, here's how it used to be. Now it's explaining why the phenomenon, mm-hmm. all the good and all the bad. I don't know if we should go in and have O.J. Simpson's plaque say, oh, by the way, he probably murdered Nicole. Mm-hmm. But we can't ignore O.J. Simpson. We should acknowledge O.J. Simpson. We can't ignore Aaron Rodgers. We have to acknowledge Aaron Rodgers with all the burps and the farts and the fact that apparently he does not wash his hair, as near as I could tell.
Well, I hope Jonathan Taylor wins it. So that's all.
I think he deserves it.
Yeah.
That works. Unfortunately, there's probably going to be a backlash after what Hub did. Yep. Of course, to demonstrate that Aaron Rodgers is indeed a jerk, he decided to call Hub Arkush a jerk in return.
Yeah.
He's a bum. That is jerky behavior. Mm-hmm. I would like my MVP of the NFL to be capable of the higher road, but that's not Aaron.
Well, he said he had never met Hub Arkush before, and then he called him a bum. So he's kind of like the double standard of what he just was trying to explain about. He's never met Hub Arkush, and Hub Arkush said all these things about his character, and then he fires back and says he's a bum. So
he also said, I'm not going to address this.
Yeah.
And then as he always does, does a 5-minute press conference about how he's been wronged. I would like my MVP to be above the criticism of a 70-year-old Bears fan.
That's right.
Well, and I'm curious, Mike, and a guy who I watched playing in the NBA for years, and Dirk Nowitzki, who the Dallas Mavericks just retired his number. Going from an Aaron Rodgers, who might be an all-time jerk, to Dirk Nowitzki, looked like an all-time class act. Was he?
Incredible, and continues to be. And the humility is so overwhelming that people don't know him, suspect that it might not be real. It's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. How humbled he is by all of this, and he is so kind in what he's done for this community, Dallas, Texas, and all of it. And of course, Dallas and Texas has been awfully good to him too. But even in his most upset moments, in his most firm moments, I'll tell you my Dirk story. There's a restaurant, kind of a trendy place called The Porch here. So somebody's at The Porch and they text me a couple years ago, Dirk's here at The Porch having dinner. So me thinking, I gotta hustle, gotta tell people what's going on in town. I put on Twitter, hey, Dirk's having dinner at The Porch. I go to Mavericks practice the next day and he summons me over and he says, Fish, of course. Because he says, of course, every sentence, of course. He says, I understand you have a job to do. And I said, yeah. I didn't have any idea what we were talking about. He goes, but when you announced that I was having dinner, 200 people lined up at my table for an autograph and a picture. He goes, and I recognize you have a job to do, but I would occasionally like to be able to go to dinner and not get bothered. And I said, man, I didn't even think of that. I understand. And very sweet. But then he put his hand on my shoulder and squeezed it lovingly, but too hard. Mm-hmm. And then he shook my hand sincerely, but way too hard.
Yeah.
And then friend to friend, he slapped me on the chest and my chest still stings a little bit. So he is a kind badass, Dirk Nowitzki. And he is the best. We could use a million more of him, but unfortunately there's only one.
Well, how's Luka?
He is more, Dirk knew nothing about America when he came here. He said, my family watched the G.R. Ewing show Dallas. That's all I knew.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, he watched the NBA at 2:00 in the morning. Whereas Luka is very Americanized. Right before he was drafted, he said, somebody get me Jennifer Aniston's phone number. He was 19. He is, as a teenager, spent off seasons in California training. So he understands Hollywood. He understands showbiz, all of that kind of stuff. He's very theatrical, but yeah, seems like a nice kid. Now, it took Dirk a little while to learn proper eating habits and all that kind of stuff. We need to get Luka there now. I mean, it is 25 years later. We've made advancements, and Luka needs to get there.
Who shot JR? Do you remember that?
It was a lady with dark hair.
Yeah, one of the women.
I don't even know, but it was. I remember it was a huge phenomenon back then.
Oh my gosh!
Oh yeah.
If you're and man, many of the audience not old enough to even know what we're talking about. There was only 3 TV channels.
Yeah. Yep.
3, and then 1 over there on the side. We didn't all watch Dallas because it was so good. We all watched Dallas because there was a 33% chance that it was the best thing on at the time.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so, it was on the cover of Time magazine. Who shot JR?
That's right.
Of course, now again, the audience now is going, Time what? Time magazine? What's that?
National championship games on Monday. We talked to George Teague a couple weeks ago. I know he's rooting for Alabama. Who you got, Mike?
I think it was fun for Cincinnati to poke its head in there for a minute. And they didn't get embarrassed. I thought they would get embarrassed. That didn't happen, right? I'm no expert on college football. I recognize that Alabama is a talent machine. So it seems to me, without knowing at all very much about the Georgia roster, the Alabama talent shouldn't lose.
Is the Super Bowl coming to Dallas, or is it going to stay in L.A.?
No, and we wrote about that on CowboysSI.com, and we tried to not make too much puffery of it. The NFL does this every year. They come up with it just in case every year. What if there's a snowstorm or a hurricane or whatever? This is different. This is COVID. As powerful as California's government is in California, the NFL is not canceling the Super Bowl at SoFi Stadium. It is not. Yeah. And if that means that we have to buy the governor a couple of drinks, then we're going to buy the governor a couple of drinks, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I get it. Well, unfortunately, we've had some passings in the last couple of weeks with a couple big name coaches in Dan Reeves and John Madden.
Yeah, I didn't know John Madden, and I knew Dan Reeves only a little bit. I went to the funeral of Pat Summerall, who, of course, was Madden's longtime partner. I don't remember the exact words, but John Madden obviously spoke. And I just remember the anticipation, because it took John, this a few years ago, but John, was obviously always a big guy, and at the end, a bigger guy. It took John a long time to walk to that stage and climb up like 3 stairs. And I just remember the anticipation of waiting for the great John Madden to give a presentation, and it was great. The thing about John Madden that we talk about the generations of fans. There are multiple generations of fans that don't even know he was a football coach. That his record was something like 137, 37-7 or something ridiculous. They went 10-5 every year or whatever, 11-5 every year. There's a generation of fans that don't even know he's a broadcaster. They just think he's a funny guy in a video game.
Yeah.
And he's all those things, but he's so iconic, both as a celebrity and then personally to the people who know him. With Dan Reeves, I will tell you this story, and I think America knows Dan Reeves. Obviously not. He's not even in the Hall of Fame. He participated in 9 Super Bowls, Dan Reeves.
Yep.
I'm not sure. If I was a Dan Reeves advocate, if I was a voter in that room, I'd go, what do you guys need? 10?
Yeah.
You need to be in 10? Player, coach, head coach, player, coach at the same time under Tom Landry. And so by 1984, he's in his 3rd year, I think, as the head coach of the Broncos. That's my first year covering the Broncos in my hometown of Greeley, Colorado, John Elway's first year. We're at the University of Northern Colorado, my college I had recently graduated from, and that's the training camp site. Down on the softball fields is where they built the football fields for the training camp. And so there was a grassy slope that you would sit on to watch the softball games. the first day they come to camp, I write this big glowing profile of Dan Reeves. I didn't even know him. I mean, I'm in Greeley. I don't know Dan Reeves. How do I get a hold of Dan Reeves? The next day at training camp, I'm sitting over on the grassy slope, and I see Dan Reeves, and he nods his head at me, and I nod my head at him in my 24-year-old arrogance, thinking he must have read my story.
Yeah, exactly.
He must have read the little tiny Greeley Tribune and realized, oh, this guy's going to win a Pulitzer someday. I got it. Then he sends an assistant over, and I'm thinking, and I'm half scared, but I'm also half thinking, I think Dan Reeves is going to have me come over and talk to him.
Yeah,
this is incredible. And the assistant comes over and he says, you see Coach Reeves? And I said, yeah. He goes, are you Mike Fisher? And I said, yeah. Puffing out my chest. And he says, Coach Reeves would like you to know that there is no sitting at Coach Reeves' practices. You will stand at Coach Reeves' practices.
Oh.
And I said, yes, sir. And the assistant walked away, and Dan Reeves looked at me again, and we nodded at each other again, and we totally understood each other. I did not. I think they trained there I was with them for 4 more years, and I don't think I ever sat in the presence of Dan Reeves again.
Dang. So sitting on like this grassy area, that'd be hard to do. Just stand there for what, a couple hours?
It seems like it now, but his concept idea was, we're here working. Yeah. This isn't, you're not on the beach. Get up and work like the rest of us. And of course, my response to him was part of my response to his stoic nature, which clearly he borrowed professionally from Dan Reeves. I mean, from Tom Landry, because personally, he was nothing like that. He was warm and fuzzy as a person.
Yeah.
And the stories are going to continue to come out about how he paid for this janitor's funeral, and he paid for this kid's education that he met, and all these things. The media people that got to know him really well, far better than me, will tell stories about how he would pull them aside privately to help them. I'm happy to say that that's going to be Dan Reeves' legacy, not his stoicism, but his warmth.
Very good, Tim.
Good start to 2022 with this.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we haven't.
Well, Mike, we're looking forward to touching base with you over the next few Fridays as we lead up to the Super Bowl here in about a month. JP, you got any last words for the weekend?
No, it's my twins' birthday tomorrow. So
wow,
14.
They turned 14.
Yeah, so and he's got his first traveling basketball tournament tomorrow.
Wait a minute, it's your twins' birthday?
Yep, boy and a girl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you said he's got his game, and I'm going, that only sounds like one twin to me.
She just gets to watch. Yeah. So
great.
She's not happy about it.
Well, well, a happy birthday to the family, and happy New Year to everybody. Again, the Niagara and Hub partnership is becoming a phenomenon. I'm really proud to be able to ride on your guys' coattails here.
No, we appreciate it. We have fun talking about it. It's always, listen, Tim and I, we love sports. We talk about it off air, and then to have you on just makes it so much better.
Gives credence and credibility to our discussions.
Yeah.
Thanks, boys. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, take care. We'll talk to you next week.